The left is holding America hostage under a threat of violence over the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. This has been totally manifested in the past couple of days, and I just think it's really worth going through to see exactly how this is happening, how they operate, because this is not a new pattern either. We've got lots and lots of examples of this, as we talked about the other day, in fact. But this is just mad. And so it begins with an insane narrative. It begins with an insane set of statements that doesn't represent reality. Here's a good example from Howard at Law. He says, Kyle Rittenhouse had his mommy drive him across state lines with a military weapon to hunt humans. That's not true. But anyway, he was defending nothing and no one. That's not true. But anyway, his victims were exactly that, victims. That's not true. Anyway, not arsonists or looters, victims. Not true. Victims of a racist, anti-Semitic, inhuman mass murderer. How is that not a description of Adolf Hitler?
That is a very good point.
That is a description of Adolf Hitler. And Kyle Rittenhouse is not Adolf Hitler. But you'll notice what's been done here. And again, you can see this is, 1,000 odd retweets, 4,000 likes nearly. You can see this has got traveled quite far. And so there's a large constituency of the left who want to believe a narrative that paints Kyle Rittenhouse very much in Alinskyist fashion as 100% evil. And of course, the good, therefore, is 100% on the side of the convicted pedophiles. And that's the framing under which this kind of mentality can be created. Because when your opponents are 100% evil and your side is 100% good, well, why would you give them the time of day? Why wouldn't you just declare war on them like they were Nazi Germany? Of course you would. A responsible person would be encouraged to do so. And so you get the online grifters who start amplifying this in, what they, like Hassan actually calls it a daycare for adult man babies, I guess, who don't want to actually, this is his position. We don't have to think about it. We just get told and programmed what to think. And so he just spends his time sucking in money on Twitch, spreading these kind of extreme narratives, demonstrable falsehoods that come from people in positions of authority, like Ayanna Pressley. We go to the next one, John. As you can see here, the Libertarian Party on Twitter have posted, they had posted, Kyle Rittenhouse did nothing wrong, and they got their account locked. Ayanna Pressley tweeted, a 17-year-old white supremacist domestic terrorist drove across state lines. I love how they're obsessed with that. Now the borders matter. Armed with an AR-15, he shot and killed 2 people who had assembled to affirm the value, dignity, and worth of black lives.
Am I incorrect in thinking that one of these people was screaming the N-word at this protest?
That's correct. Joseph Rosenbaum, the 5'3" convicted paedophile who was shot for attacking a minor, was indeed shouting the N-word.
So he wasn't exactly assembled to affirm the value, dignity, and worth of black lives then?
Well, I don't know how many N-word passes are required to do that.
Indeed.
By Mr. Rosenbaum. But you are correct. That's an excellent point. It's not like Joseph Rosenbaum seemed to particularly care about the sensitivity of black people in America. He seemed to be there just to riot. But for some reason, she's saying this, and this is the kind of thing that Hassan Piker amplifies to his audience of morons. And you end up right the way down the end of the rabbit hole at honestly, some of the most racist statements I could imagine. And I've been dealing with the left quite some time, but if we can go to the next one, this chap here, a verified checkmark on Twitter, how is it that they're all verified? They just give the worst takes. Employers, consider giving your black employees a day or 2 off after the Rittenhouse verdict. Regardless of the outcome, it's going to be hard for black people to work, and it isn't fair to expect them to. So
let me just capitulate this. We have one white person shoots 2 white people.
And a third.
Yeah. And black people need a day off.
Yes, they do, according to Gregory McKelvey.
I see.
And if you can scroll down a little bit, you can see Zuby's response to this, which is just fantastic. Like 41,000 likes on that one, but like 4,000 likes on the previous one. This tweet went a long way because it's such a ridiculous statement. Black people aren't some inferiors who can't deal with the result of this trial. I don't know why I have to say that, but the point is, who is this guy? Right? Andy knows who this guy is. We go to the next one. He's Gregory McKelvey, a Portland racial activist who thinks that the employees should give time off. He was a rising star in Portland until it was revealed he was arrested on suspicion of kidnapping and strangling an underage girl.
So he's a child murderer?
Allegedly, on suspicion.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Weird how he's a verified checkmark on Twitter and people listen to him. Why? Why is he anything? But this is what the problem is, isn't it? You've got a group of people who are radical, violent criminals who are using their radical politics as a cover to do criminal activities. This is another one, and it's an excuse to pretend they're not the vile human beings that they clearly are. But anyway, this isn't the first time, of course, and it's worth thinking about, okay, what was the context? Why was Kyle under attack in Kenosha in 2020? Well, it was because of a false narrative by the media on Jacob Blake. You may remember that they said that he was unarmed when he was shot by the police, which wasn't true. He was being served a warrant for allegedly raping a woman, and instead of going peacefully and cooperating with the police in the legal process, he instead went to his car to get a knife. And the policeman shot him in the back, and now he's disabled. He survived, he is just disabled. But the media narrative was, oh, he was unarmed. A black man has been unfairly shot, an unarmed black man has been unfairly shot by the police because they're racist, and therefore that was what justified all of the rioting, burning and looting that went on in Kenosha in 2020. They did this. They ginned this up through false reporting, right? And the thing is, Jacob Blake even admitted that he was armed. He admitted that he was armed earlier this year. He did a television interview after being shot, obviously in his wheelchair, and he said that not only he had a knife in his possession, but at the time of shooting, he also dropped it before picking it up again. And he said, I shouldn't have picked it up, only considering what was going on at the time. I wasn't thinking clearly. No, you were thinking that you were going to stab the cops, clearly. You know, I don't know why you would do this. It's mad, right? But the point is the police shot him justifiably in self-defense because he was armed and wasn't cooperating with a lawful warrant that he was being served for rape. Oh, new hero of the left. Again, just add them to the pile of criminal scum that the left is continually defending compared to, honestly, the kind of Boy Scouts in Kyle Rittenhouse that the right ends up defending. But isn't that interesting, the difference in character between the two? And so that's a reminder of why we're all here. And Andy No did a great job just going through, look, this is a flashback of what was happening in Kenosha at the time when Kyle Rittenhouse was out. If you can just scroll down through this, you can just see the amount of violence that was going on. Like groups of people committing arson, threatening to attack people and threatening setting things on fire after already having done so, surrounding cops, threatening them, saying we'll burn your shop down too, burning more things. And there was one where an elderly man with a fire extinguisher, I wonder what he was trying to do with that fire extinguisher in the face of all this arson, was trying to ward off BLM rioters and looters, and they beat him unconscious and he begins bleeding from the head. All of this chaos, all of this damage, all of these people hurt based on lies told by the media. So anyway, Nicholas Sandman thinks that Kyle Rittenhouse should sue when all of this is done, and I agree with him. Nicholas Sandman, you may recall, was the Covington Catholic kid that we covered the other day, just a refresher, who ended up getting massively smeared by all of the mainstream media, left-wing leaning mainstream media in America, and ended up getting around $250 million from multiple lawsuits that were settled by the media, because that's just them admitting, yes, we lied. It's not they were wrong, they lied. And this keeps happening because they keep lying. And this creates a class of radical activists who, based on the principles that they're operating by, which are racial collectivism, decide that basically what this means, this is why the Kyle Rittenhouse trial is controversial to them. Because really, why should they care? A kid was attacked by a group of thugs in Kenosha. It's not actually about Jacob Blake. It's actually about the direct attack that was on Kyle Rittenhouse. Why would you have a problem with it? But the thing is, George Floyd's nephew, who appears to be part of this like radical cult, has thoughts on it. Let's hear what he has to say.
I ain't even gonna name the people that I know that's up in the Kenosha trial. But there's cameras in there. Yep. It's definitely cameras up in there, and there's definitely people taking pictures of the juries and everything like that. We know what's going on. So we need the same results, man. We need the same results. Justice for Dante Wright, justice for Austo.
So, justice for a bunch of people who I'm sure the media has not lied about at all. But they're filming the jurors, trying to dox the jurors, get their identities, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But the thing that I found fascinating there is that we need the same results. Who's we? And why do you need any particular result out of this? Like, who's we? I'm sure that he means black people, the black community. He doesn't specify it, but that's bound to be the implication there, I think. But why? Why? As Diamond and Silk rightfully point out on Twitter, this isn't about black people. Kyle Rittenhouse didn't kill any black people. Why are black people, politically black people, standing outside of the court saying Black Lives Matter when no black people died in this altercation, or even wounded in this altercation. But who knows? Who knows? But it's because really it is about black people. It's about the way that the media has been managing this constituency of radical activists based on racial or other political principles, and have been weaponizing them against mainstream society, against law and order, against the court system, against regular American society. And so anyway, these people have fallen for it, and so you get a mix of both pro and anti Kyle Rittenhouse people outside of the courts, some of them with spicy merchandise that of course I disavow. You only shoot into self-defense. So this has been a huge nexus of political tension in the United States, again, because of media lies. If we can go to the next one, you can see that there are protesters standing out there. In fact, we've got a clip of the protest, so we may as well watch this clip of the protest.
Kyle Rittenhouse and his actions. Right. So why are you guys out here talking about Black Lives Matter? My science says it right there. My science says it right there. Black Lives Matter has nothing to do with Kyle Rittenhouse's actions. Right. Nothing at all. It's not about that. It's not about that. So if you're going to be here and talk about self-defense, talk about that. But don't come out here talking about BLM and Antifa. Kyle Rittenhouse killed 2 white men, and we are seeing that white supremacy is upholding that. It's accepting that. That has nothing to do with BLM. You all have made this trial political with your own personal beliefs.
He was acting in self-defense. He came here to protect.
I think you can stop it there, actually, John. So I love that take so much.
Yeah.
Why are you out here talking about BLM? Why are you there, Miss BLM defender? If Black Lives Matter has nothing to do with any of this, why are you there? Why would you care, right? But obviously this is connected to Black Lives Matter, because Black Lives Matter are the foot soldiers, the on-the-ground arm of this kind of media campaign. It is absolutely about these same things, and you know it, which is why you're there complaining that they're complaining about Black Lives Matter. And we know what's going to happen if Kyle Rittenhouse gets acquitted as well. Everyone knows there's going to be violence. There's going to be violence from left-wing activists. Well, again, I say left-wing activists, the violent criminals who are being given cover by a false narrative by the media, which is why 500 National Guard have been called into Wisconsin to say, well, look, we're going to need some military force to protect the city from being burned down.
This does remind me of what they used to say about the Old Firm football matches in Glasgow. If they win, we know there's violence, and if they lose, we also know there's violence.
Yes.
So the violence seems to be an inevitability at this point.
Well, no, technically it's not inevitable. I think if this goes the same way as the Derek Chauvin trial, which I don't think was fair either, but never mind, if Kyle Rittenhouse gets convicted for defending himself against a mob of radical communists, then I don't think there will be violence, because the great sacrifice will have been made, and the bloodlust will have been slaked at least for one day. But no justice will have been given. It's notable that Joe Biden hasn't called for calm. This is something that people on Twitter have been pointing out. Why is he not doing what he can to diffuse the tension? Well, Joe Biden is an avid supporter of Black Lives Matter. He's a Democrat president, supported by a media that gives him almost unvarnished praise and veneration, and people who vote for him. They're all part of the same structure, from the activists on the ground, to the media, to the presidency and the people surrounding him. They're all part of the same organism that you can see operating in tandem through American politics. It's clear as day from someone like me who's not in the United States. I can see this puppeteering your country and the narrative surrounding it. And those people who are outside of it are the victims of it. They're the ones who are being dealt damage by this. But instead, if you go to Joe Biden's Twitter account, you can see, if you scroll down a bit, John, you can see him tweeting about his bipartisan infrastructure bill, which is him pissing away your money because he doesn't care about your opinions at all. But he had previously called Kyle Rittenhouse a white supremacist. Under what evidence? This is quite a weighty allegation, I would say. Right, and when Peter Doocy, the Fox News correspondent who sits in these, who's been terrorizing Jen Psaki with reasonable questions, says, well, why did you say that? She just sighs because she thinks he's a white supremacist as well and doesn't want to have to talk about it. She doesn't have a good answer. He's not like Kyle Rittenhouse has ever posted anything about white supremacy on the internet.
So there's literally not a scrap of evidence for that incendiary accusation from the President of the United States.
No, but is it incendiary anymore? Because they literally use it every goddamn day of their lives. and they have called literally everything racist. I mean, they think the entire United States is racist. They think it's a white supremacist project. They think that the idea of freedom is a white supremacist project. So it's like, okay, well, I mean, it's just another day ending in Y to these people. But yeah, Biden had included a clip of Rittenhouse carrying the AR-15 in a video that he posted to social media in which it was insinuated that Rittenhouse was a white supremacist, but no evidence of that whatsoever. Anyway, moving on. Seems that the jurors are scared. Now, back at the beginning of November, the Federalist posted this article with some comments from some of the jurors that have been kept anonymous. But they say, one of them said that no matter the verdict, half the country will be up in arms about it.
I think the same half will be up in arms no matter the verdict.
Well, yeah, exactly. And again, half the country isn't accurate, actually. It's a much smaller number. It's just they're very easy to direct through these media reports. And so it will appear that half the country is up in arms about it. But I believe that it's going to be something like 2/3 to 3/4 of the country who really oppose these kind of Black Lives Matter looting and burning sprees. Another said, I'm more afraid of our community and the outsiders of our community that are coming in. It just brings us back to August 2020. So again, thinking that outsiders are going to come. Now, Gage Grosskreutz had traveled something like twice the distance to get to Kenosha that Rittenhouse had, but he didn't cross the state line. So,
of course.
He didn't violate a border. But
borders are so sacred these days.
At least we can all agree on that. But anyway, so you can see that these the jurors are just like, look, we know what's going to happen. We know what the media are going to do. They're going to misframe this. They're going to cause riots. And a third said that it was scary to be on a case like this one, specifically citing riots and wondering aloud, am I going to get home safe? You can't really have a fair justice system if the jurors are in terror of their lives because of constant media attention, unfairly misframing what's going on. And as we saw earlier with George Floyd's nephew, there have been attempts to dox the jury themselves. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to put the legal process in jeopardy? I would say it's the people who know they don't have a good case and yet want to bully the people involved into doing their will anyway. Again, we need this result. Who's we and what? Why? Why does that matter?
Well, it's a novel legal strategy, making your case via the mob.
What, terror?
Yep.
I think we may have seen it before.
Are we talking about the Gracchi or the early Roman Republic or
the
more
French Revolution or in the Russian Revolution? I mean, this is actually not new. It's been done many times, and it's pure evil, and the people doing it should be desperately ashamed of themselves, but of course they're not. But anyway, there have, of course, been threats against the jurors, and so what's the Biden administration doing about it? Well, not much. As Senovich pointed out rightly on Twitter, has Garland sent the FBI to investigate the threats against the Rittenhouse jurors? Nope. But he did call a bunch of parents who didn't want critical race theory white supremacists, and he did put them on a terror watch list. So, at least you're getting the right people. And so, why wasn't the result released yesterday when it was being deliberated? Because it's a pretty open and shut case. Anyone who watched the footage can see that. All the evidence is that Kyle Rittenhouse did nothing wrong because he was attacked by a bunch of violent thugs and convicted career criminals. And it seems that two jurors are holding the decision up, outright citing the backlash, according to insider information that Jack Posobiec was able to get. They're worried about media leaking their names, what will happen to their families, jobs, etc., including doxing threats from anarchist groups. Yeah, no surprise. It seems that there's a good chance that that's the case. It seems that the jurors are not unaware that this is a deeply politicized case and is not going to go very well either way. So, interestingly, there was an event that I wasn't aware of where essentially a part of the process is that the judge pulls numbers from a raffle drum, and for some reason the judge let Kyle Rittenhouse pull the numbers instead. This is quite unusual, and I do wonder why he would do that. Because frankly, I'm worried that he's putting the legal process in jeopardy by, this is unusual procedure and therefore, complaining on the procedure rather than the merits of the thing. Don't know why that's the case, but anyway, moving on. We arrived at no verdict yesterday, and so we're hoping the jury is resuming their deliberations at 3 p.m. GMT, which I can't remember what time that is in America, but the point is it will be hopefully later today that we get a result, but who knows? We don't know. It might not. But the deliberations will continue on today. 9 a.m. Central Time it is. The jury of 7 women and 5 men sent 2 notes to the judge on Tuesday, neither giving any indication of the substance of the discussions. And they, after 8 hours of deliberations, called it a day and are continuing today. So we know what the problem is, and we know who's holding America hostage. We know why the jurors are delaying, and Godspeed, Kyle.
If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast Lotus Eaters, you can catch us live 1 p.m. UK time on our website. And if you'd like more from us, you can also subscribe to find some of our premium content.
Yeah, we actually have absolutely loads on there now because we're over a year old at this point. So we've got a massive library of content that you can't find anywhere else, such as our regular series, which are Contemplations and Epochs. Contemplations, we have philosophical and scientific discussions, and in Epochs, we have long, in-depth conversations about things that happen in history. This is one we did recently about the Nika riots, the absolutely brutal Nika riots in Constantinople. I really enjoyed doing myself, but we also have access to, we also have loads of expert articles from people who know what they're talking about, such as this one talking about the misnomer of postmodern neo-Marxism. You may well remember Jordan Peterson getting castigated by left-wing activists for using the phrase. Well, it is a bit of a misnomer, but Thomas happens to be an expert in this subject, and so he takes you through it. And as you can see, there is a silver and gold tier member audio track that goes along with it. So if you don't want to have to read it, you can just listen to it instead. But we also have a bunch of premium podcasts that we can't really host on YouTube because of editorial guidelines, shall we say, such as Harry doing this excellent one, What Happened to the January 6th Rioters, and another one, in fact, that Harry and myself did about a whistleblower from a German public broadcaster talking about the COVID coverage and the particularly engineered narrative in which they can't talk about certain things. And so this leaves a bunch of questions up in the air, and we explore that. Again, editorial guidelines mean we can't really host that elsewhere. We also have a bunch of really excellent interviews. I did one recently with a chap called Philip Tanzer. He's if you're a men's rights activist, you may have heard of him because he comes out of that space, but he's also an ex-gay porn star who's turned conservative activist who has some very interesting opinions.
Very interesting trajectory to take.
Yeah, it's the sort of person you're probably not going to meet in your regular life, but he's a fascinating guy. He's a really nice chap. And also, follow us on alternative media because, of course, we want to break the stranglehold of Silicon Valley over everything that we do. And this means that follow us on platforms like Ghetto, where you can follow Lotus_com to get all the latest updates from us. And also, we are speaking, or I am speaking, at a conference hosted by Ghetto at the London O2, the Indigo section of the London O2 on December the 8th. I'll be speaking there as it's part of the Counterculture conference, where we're talking about why what is happening to the West is happening and what we can do about it. So part of that is following us on Getter and coming and see us, and of course, subscribe because that keeps everything running.